Welcome back. Breaking down the chaos of political headlines over the past several weeks, we have asked several longtime political reporters in Wisconsin to join us tonight. It is a busy time for them, so we please welcome Scott Bauer from the Associated Press, Jessie Opoien, the Capitol Bureau Chief of the Capitol Times, and Patrick Marley, who many of you may know from the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, but has recently made his jump to the Washington Post. I know it's busy for you guys, so a busy stretch ahead of you as well, so thanks for your time tonight. Let's start with the Senate primary race and how this thing just cleared out. I mean, that seems to be one of the biggest foregone conclusions, Scott, for tomorrow as we look ahead to this. But have you seen anything like this where just everybody cleared the path for one candidate at this stage?
No, not this late, definitely, where you had 3 candidates, including one who spent, what, $12 million of his own money, dropping out 2 weeks before the primary. And, you know, all 3 of them, Tom Nelson, Alex Lazary, and Sarah Godlewski, their names are on the ballot. They foresee, you know, will get some votes from people, but they made clear they were dropping out, supporting Mandela Barnes. It seemed clear they had seen some polling that made it clear in their minds, at least, that they didn't really have a chance. So they pulled out.
And Jessie, a lot of money of their own money, especially with Lazary and Godlewski as well.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure that was a factor. When it's your own money on the line, you have to think about, you know, is this investment really worth it? Is it worth putting the family through something like this? And, you know, it started with Tom Nelson, who was raising his own money, but it did seem like it was a pretty swift decision once they, you know, started thinking about that. Interesting to note, though, Alex Lazary is continuing to spend against Ron Johnson, so he's taking that wealth and still putting it to use.
That was a big question, right? Is he going to continue to be that enthusiastic once we get through Tuesday? Patrick, do they have the candidate here to threaten Ron Johnson, the incumbent? That's a tough ask.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to find out, right? Ron Johnson's a polarizing character where there's his supporters love him, his detractors don't like him at all. You know, it's going to be a massive race in terms of the kind of money that's spent coming in from all over the country.
Yeah, get ready for the next 91 days. Jessie, let's talk a little bit about the dueling endorsements. We saw a lot of primaries last week. This was an issue, whether it was Arizona, Missouri, Michigan. We saw Trump, Pence kind of butting heads. We know what happened on January 6th. What has this been like in Wisconsin?
I mean, it's a fascinating dynamic. You know, we've been used to a Republican Party in Wisconsin that's been very strong, very unified for the last decade plus, and we're starting to see some fracturing, some fissures now, and, you know, that's playing out with that national proxy with the, you know, the Trump endorsement, endorsing Tim Michels. Trump's been really relitigating 2020, continuing to talk about decertifying the election results of 2020, while Mike Pence is going around the country talking about looking forward, moving the party forward, and he's here backing Rebecca Clayfish.
Yeah, Patrick, when you look at those dueling endorsements, we heard it in the piece we heard earlier, is either one of these like the new Republican? I mean, they're both kind of in the rearview mirror, but which one still has an impact with voters?
I mean, I think Trump has a much bigger sway over the party, right? He's got, speaking of people who have supporters that are very dedicated to him, Pence maybe not as much, and with Trump you've got some very strong detractors, including some in the Republican Party. I think the other interesting element here is you've got the Scott Walker factor, who's entirely behind Rebecca Clayfish. You know, continues to be a big figure in Wisconsin. So this is really as much of a standoff between Walker and Trump as it is between Trump and Pence.
Scott, did you watch this in other races last week and see how that kind of played out, whether it was Michigan or Missouri or Arizona or wherever?
Yeah, well, Patrick was in Michigan, so he might have some firsthand knowledge there. But we've definitely seen a split record for Trump in terms of his endorsements around the country. Win some, lose some. Here, he's only endorsed a couple candidates who are on the ballot tomorrow, and Tim Michels and Adam Steen, who's running against Robin Voss, and Janelle Brandtjen he also endorsed. But in terms of this governor's race, I think it's right. You've got Clayfish, who's got this support that has been there for a long time. Lawmakers, Republican lawmakers, law enforcement officials, and Michels really is running on that Trump endorsement above all else.
What do you think of the election integrity question here? I mean, is that going to be something we're going to be talking about? I would assume, you know, more maybe after November, but how much is this on the ballot? How much is this on top of mind of voters?
Well, I mean, it's been a huge issue in the Republican primary, right? You've got Timothy Ramthan's running, and he's got this platform of decertification, which is not legally possible. Clayfish says that's not possible, but wants to do all kinds of other things related to this issue. Michaels, haven't been able to pin him down as to what he thinks on decertification. Seems to leave open some possibility for it. But you know, there's a segment of the Republican base that is extremely interested in this issue. They've been talking about it a lot. I think one thing we want to watch after the primary, and as they try to persuade more swing voters, are they talking about it as much, and are they talking about it in a different way?
Is there a single issue aside from, this might be more also for November, but you know, you look at the abortion discussion. We heard that was brought up in an earlier piece as well, and we saw what happened in Kansas last week. How much is that going to be a driving force for either side here in November to the next 91 days?
I mean, I certainly think Democrats are going to be talking about it. What we've seen playing out so far is a lot of talk about that from Democrats, while Republicans are really focusing on inflation, the economy, contracting GDP over the last couple quarters, and that'll continue, I think, going into November.
Yeah, I think Governor Evers would love to make this election a referendum on abortion. It's not going to be a referendum only on abortion. It's going to be a referendum on his record and what people want to see in the future. But you can bet he will be talking a lot about abortion rights and what he can do as governor versus what a Republican would do.
What did you think about Kansas last week? I mean, was that completely shocking to you when you saw that result? I
mean, I was surprised by the size of the margin in a state that's as red as Kansas is, and I think that it's something that's gotten the attention of both Democrats, who have been looking at a kind of bleak potential landscape for them, and the attention of Republicans who have thought they very well could run the table this fall. Maybe give them some second thoughts.
What are you guys going to be watching tonight? Scott, what's the first thing on Tuesday night? What is the first thing you're going to be watching as things develop?
I mean, obviously the governor's race primary is the big thing, and what is turnout looking like in the WOW counties, and is it strong for Clayfish there? Is it not? You know, I think that it's really going to be interesting to see kind of what the enthusiasm is for Democrats also, given that they don't really have this Senate primary anymore. And obviously the Voss race is fascinating down in Racine County, so we'll be keeping close on that.
Do you guys think that'll be a referendum on Trump in Wisconsin, just how much people are taking him seriously, really the big one? Or is it more about the individual candidates? I mean, Steen, nobody really knows much about him. Voss has been so key in Burlington in those areas.
I mean, I think it's hard to think of it as a referendum on Trump because it's just one assembly district, right? It's just a small place, and Trump came in really at the last minute here. No, like you say, nobody had heard of Steen until this moment.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, I think it's the focus on election integrity, like you mentioned. I think that's a bigger driving factor here than maybe Trump as an individual.
Parts of the state that you're watching with as the results come in tomorrow, in particular, Fox Valley, maybe?
Sure, yeah. I mean, that's always a swingy area, always interesting. Over the weekend, there was an Emerson College poll that came out that showed some pretty interesting stuff within the governor's race. Michaels had some pretty strong support in the rural areas, but Clayfish flipped that and expanded it when you're looking at suburban and urban areas. So, to Scott's point on the WOW counties, where's that enthusiasm, where's that turnout, and does that reflect what we saw in that poll?
Well, it's going to be a wild 91 days after tomorrow night. So I know it's going to be busy for all of you. So all of you, Scott, Jessie, Patrick, thanks for being with us tonight. We really appreciate it ahead of this very, very busy stretch.